Kudi. Begin with the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with 585 billion naira graft. EFCC quizzes Betta Edu for hours. Rider says no bank MD was arrested or detained as Edu, Sadiya, Halima clear air on their rules. Edu suspension commendable but not enough, and that's coming from Atiku. Why Tinubu moved swiftly against Betta Edu, and that's coming from APC. You can see a photo story showing a partnership for security, and that's from Enugu. Cost of governance, Tinubu slashes delegation for federal government trips by 60%. On page 11, Army to address security in dark areas in Enugu. Our stories above, we have a Cadbury Nigeria to sell 402 million shares over inability to pay $7.7 million debt. Army will lead the Rivers Assembly right of Ubara over 2024 budget presentation delay. You can read that on page 12. Edo 2024, Tribal frowns on Edo North meeting endorsing Yodalo. You can read that on page 12. Hold Davido if harm befalls me, and that's coming from Tiwa Savage. We take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with 585 million humanitarian scandal. Nigerians want probe expanded to other poverty alleviation scheme. Supreme Court reserves a judgment in Delta Plateau Guba appeals. Tinubu slashes official trip expenses entered by 60%. Nigeria's economy to grow at 3.3% in 2024 World Bank projects. APC sues Adeleke for appointing PDP member as OSEC chairman. Army confirms arrest of soldier for insulting Sanwo-Olu. Federal government probes private varsities over fake degrees. Niger coup leaders free President Bazoum's son. Federal government pledge to end insecurity. That's what we can take here. So on the front page of the Guardian, we take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with 37 billion naira, 585 million naira probe. Sadiya Edu barred from traveling. Rider says EFCC impounds international passport. 3 banks MD quizzed. Interior Minister at the Aso Villa. No sacred cow in anti-graft battle, says Olukoyede. Supreme Court reserves judgment of Mutfwang appeal against SAC. Stories above. Police parade suspects in Plateau killings others. Tinubu orders court of presidents, vice presidents traveling team. First Lady Minister Agency CEO orders affected. Police rescue hotelier held after payment of 25 million naira ransom. Rivers Assembly awaits of Ubara's 2024 budget orders. Soldier in trouble for insulting Sanwo-Olu. We take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with humanitarian ministry scandals. EFCC sees Edu, former minister's passport. Bank MDs grilled. Suspended minister barred from traveling. Photo story showing Plateau parade, 3 suspects linked to Plateau killings. 85 abducted as bandits return to Kaduna Abuja Expressway. Lagos police look into Tiwa Savage's petition against Davido. You can read that on pages 4 and 5. TB Joshua, Squan fault BBC report. Ex-disciple knocks late prophet. Stories above. NNPCL post over 2 trillion naira profit. Fake degrees. Federal government probes 107 private varsities. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, Nigerians hailed Tinubu as President trim foreign trips entourage. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Gbero Oladrigbe, Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. It's good to have you join me this morning, sir.
Oh, it's a pleasure being with you.
Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah, same to you and everybody there.
Alright, so let's delve in, and of course we're talking about Betta Edu. She appeared in EFCC office to shed more light on the 585 million naira cash said to have been moved from the ministry into a private account. What's your take on this matter?
Well, let me first commend President Bola Tinubu for taking rapid action on this. corruption is unacceptable in a country that has been ruined by it, like Nigeria. It shouldn't be tolerated by any stretch. So Tinubu is commendable to have taken that step of getting her suspended, and at the same time getting EFCC involved in the matter. But let me state that something is really wrong with a system that allow even the minister herself, another minister, to have access to that quantum of money. As a matter of fact, Tinubu now should put a limit on what transaction any minister can engage in. Maybe around 50 million. For a minister to have access to billions of naira, and to the extent of going on a very reckless track of impunity by transferring such amount to a private account. Of course, something is definitely wrong with that type of system we are running. And Tinubu should look beyond even Betta Edu. And what I have said too again is this. Betta Edu, before the whole cabinet of Tinubu become nest of looters, he should appreciate the fact that Betta could only be a manager of a very terrible network within his cabinet. So he should look introspectively, engage his minister, and go the whole log. Anyone among them that is involved in this should go for it. Nobody should be spared. That is how to build a nation. That is how to run a credible, transparent, and accountable government. So he has started, we are watching, whoever is mentioned in this should be equally investigated and prosecuted, and the country and the government must work towards their conviction. Nobody should escape this. But I think that is my take on that of Betta Edu. But that also is an indictment on the screening process in the house. You just brought somebody on the tick that he was a commissioner. How did he become a commissioner and first personal assistant to Ayade and commissioner later without experience in anything, in any endeavor, in any enterprise, aside from what he studied in school? So you don't run a country like that without somebody with this age. What is important is that, of course, your skill. In what areas you are going to work, your skill is essential. What does she know about even humanitarian intervention that she has to become humanitarian minister? We bother about nothing in this country. We just put people to position that they are fit for, and of
Hello, sir, you can go ahead.
yes, they are not fit for the position in the first place because they don't have the technical knowledge of that area, the humanitarian area in this wise for Betta Edu. And secondly, corruption has become subject of impunity in this country. Look at the same ministry. The immediate past minister is still in the same mess. And the current one, less than 6 months, she has gotten involved to the extent of people traveling by air to Lokoja from Abuja, places without airport, and claiming airport fee, air travel fee, fees for the journey. It's unacceptable. Who is checking this character? And she carry out this even with cogent advice from to show the level of impunity that we tolerate in this government. The Tinubu government must live to be exceptional in the sense that he should begin to put eyes on his own minister himself. They should report to him what they have done and how they have done it, where they have done it, and how they did that thing. Everything must be reported to him, if need be. Maybe every bi-weekly. So we are in a desperate situation. Look at the number of young people that have no job, that have nothing. And you are even paying somebody 400 and something million for consultancy. Do you know how many? Assuming that you are transferring 25 million to people, that will go for thousands of people, and you are paying it as consultancy to a fellow minister. That is unacceptable. That is immoral. That is illegal. That is a demonstration of kowtowing to conflict of interest. For a minister in the cabinet of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to take consultancy job is act of malfeasance, is act of corruption, is act of immorality, and is a copious practical example of conflict of interest, which by any stretch represents corruption. And Betta Edu has demonstrated this intention when he went to Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo at the eve of election to go there and distribute money. That is both buying, that is unacceptable, under the guise of humanitarian intervention. Assuming that she has not committed this crime, how come in the Nigeria of today that you have to prioritize Lagos, Ogun, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River as where the most vulnerable live in Nigeria? Does it make sense?
Alright, Mr.
Is that a grand or complete humanitarian maps that isolate vulnerable group for intervention in a country that have you have what this multidimensional poverty index? Even if you rely on that, will Lagos have vision as a place to go for humanitarian intervention? Will Ogun have vision? Will Imo State have vision? Cross River and Akwa Ibom? These people are just extremely corrupt in moral, corrupt in articulation, professionally corrupt, even in building humanitarian plan and developing framework for intervention. So it's not even monetary corruption we are talking about alone.
Mr. Burns, you have spoken about this situation and have said that what if Betta Edu might just be the fall guy for other people who have benefited from the money meant for the poor Nigerians? What do you make of this?
That is what I'm saying. A minister has been indicted, and I know others are there, no matter how close they are to President Tinubu. It should not spare any one of them. It should not spare. That will be the beginning of his lowest rating. If he spare any one of them. In fact, the rating of President Tinubu jump up at least a little bit when he ordered for suspension and arrest of Edu by EFCC. And why that is that many of us don't even believe in President Tinubu in terms of capacity to fight corruption. But since he is demonstrating it, we should give him at least benefit of doubt. And if he reverses this positive trend that he has triggered, his government will become anyhow government. Because Buhari will not have even taken this type of decision. Buhari will be looking, and people looted extremely under Buhari. So Buhari was a monumental disaster when it comes to governing Nigeria. And Tinubu should not tread such path.
All right, so what we have seen so far is a program that is meant to deal with poverty and what has turned to a cash cow for in that ministry under the same party. And what do you make of this? Because it looks like corruption is really a hydra-headed monster that has eaten our system.
Well, that is the most annoying part of this problem. That is the most annoying part of this problem that we are dealing with. That high-ranking people who should be magnanimous enough to prioritize poor people are stealing from the poor. And that is how we roll in Nigeria. You have a country, people were impoverished by a particular government, and that government is still the one distributing palliative to those they impoverish by their policy, by their conduct, by their character, by their corruption, by their by commission and non-commission offences or infraction. So that is how we roll in Nigeria. The rich steals from poor in Nigeria. It's not the other way around, and that is why people are kept in perpetual condition of poverty in Nigeria of today. Can you imagine the contract given out among themselves? Maybe if you search, you see some legislator involved in this. You see the other minister involved in this. At the end of the day, what goes to the poor? The poor, they impoverish by their policy themselves. So what goes to them? So Nigeria is a very dysfunctional system that is recklessly, planlessly, and of course governed with the attitude of charity. And this is not how to fight corruption. You don't even fight corruption. I said that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs should even be scrapped. You can't use humanitarian poverty is not a humanitarian problem. Poverty is a development concern. You fight poverty with development programs, projects, and strategy. Not with humanitarian strategy, not with humanitarian program, not with humanitarian project. Those one belongs to those that are displaced, and temporarily you want to meet their need. If you want to take people out of corruption, you can't do or achieve that through humanitarian strategy. It must be a very robust development strategy that accommodates transfer of wealth, reduction of cost and burden of the poor. It could be through taxation, it could be through other things, and deliberate plan for varied population. In this way, the population of the young people in Nigeria.
All right, so how can we justify good governance in a corruption-prone economy?
That is antithetical to good governance. Corruption will reverse everything you think of. Corruption will breed lawlessness. Corruption will governance in democracy. Governance is expected to lead to development, but where corruption is involved, it's going to drag everyone and everybody and every structure backward. The structure will be collapsed to accommodate personal interests, vested interests, and thereby the structure will not work. The system will not be respected or obeyed or worked with. The system, in fact, it has shown that the system has collapsed in this case of Betta Edu. For an individual to have access to millions of naira and billions and transfer it to personal account, distribute it, and they are doing it, and they were celebrating it. That is an example of systemic collapse. It's a dysfunctional system, and it cannot trigger development. It cannot generate the centrifugal force necessary for development. Rather, it will continue to breed inequality. Corruption will breed violence, breed the type of anger that you are seeing in Nigeria today, and the type of killing that is going on, mindless killing, where people don't even bother again, because you have reduced them to the ladder of poverty, and they can't place any value on their own life and the life of other people. That is what government has caused. So most of the crime you see going on in Nigeria today are prepared by the state. The people are merely committing them.
All right, moving on now. In a bid to cut the cost of governance, the president has directed that all the entourage to state and international events be drastically reduced by 60%. What's your take?
It should go beyond that. What type of 60% that is on this thing we'll be having? Is it because of the backlash of what happened in Lagos? It's on this and everything. Look at it. Okay, let them even give me. They should repay what they spent for COP28. It should go beyond that. It should reduce the number of aircraft in presidential fleets. It should reduce the number of travels for minister. No minister should travel more than 2 times in a year outside the country. It's unacceptable to go and do what? Except for maybe minister of external affairs, what do we call them now? Minister of a few ministers whose job are critical to engagement of Mr. President when he's traveling. Others should sit at home and solve the problems we have. Ridiculously, Minister of Trade, according to Adam Oshimole during budget screening, projected 1 billion to travel to Netherlands to do what? To achieve what? 1 billion for a minister to travel with threatenings of jobless people and police and family members and friends. Those are habits of corruption that we have built, and we continue to influence people who are laboring. They are working hard, but they are getting poorer in the country every day. And we do nothing about their system, and you are enjoying opulent life, opulent governance, government that is rooted in hedonism, pleasure, and mindlessly doing so without giving consideration to large population of Nigeria that are marooned in unacceptable poverty.
All right, Mr. Green, looking at the Nigerian structure, what exactly do you think is the factors that are contributing to the high cost of governance, and what solution would you prefer?
Look, the system is one. We must restructure. Most of the power at the center should be devolved to the subnational, that is the state in this one. Secondly, we should go for unicameral legislature. We don't need Senate and House of Assembly. Nigeria should be okay with only House of Assembly. We may choose to call it Congress, we may choose to call it other name, or even Senate if we like. It shouldn't be bicameral. We don't need 2 of them. Secondly, Nigeria has no business buying car for legislators. It doesn't happen anywhere. A country that is borrowing money. In America, they don't do that. Secondly, Tinubu should reduce the number of his ministers. I've said it. What is he doing with 48 ministers? The most powerful country in the world today, arguably, is America. America has 16 ministers, including the vice president. 16 ministers. Look at it. That means that we have over times 3 of what America is having, and we are servicing them. And don't forget, this ministry come with their own structure: permanent secretary, directors, deputy director, assistant director, down to messengers, and you continue to pay heavily on personnel costs, begin to heighten and everything. So there should be devolution of power should happen, reduction in offices, that is ministerial and everything. Tinubu has opportunity to go back to Orofaye Commission report and implement those things that are there, so that we can have smart government. Nobody is talking of a government that is big, that is this thing now. When BBC moved from Bush House was a gigantic one. Their current location is very smart office they are losing, and yet they are getting across the world with their news and everything. So you go for smart office, smart this thing. That is the dictate of the president. All information that you need for you just retain critical offices at the center, like office of Minister of External Affairs, office of Finance office, and very few one. All those education, all those things, they can go back to the states. Particularly, what is going on? Federal government even doing with federal government colleges again? What are we doing with them? They should be ceded to the state, and this has been advocated long time ago by Dr. Kaisholari. Not now. I'm talking of advocacy that took place over 30 years ago by the late Dr. Kaisholari. Yet we are still in the same system, wallowing in poverty, creating functional education that does not have value to economy and to people that obtain such education. We look at okay, you have all this ministry, all this criminal, yet they are stamping a passport of somebody that never visited Cotonou 15 times. To and fro at the border. What does that tell you about the porosity of our border and border security? So it's not what you have, gigantic office and all those things that trigger development. So all those things must be done in order for us to have smart government, and of course that is impactful, and that is development tailored.
All right, Mr. Agbero, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mr. is speaking this morning. He says his name is Solomon. We're going to host him, and I told you he loves salmon fish. Your duty is to prepare it. What's your business with that? Solomon and salmon sounds alike. And Mrs. replied and said, but they said dog don't eat dog. Fish shouldn't eat fish too.
Yeah, Solomon shouldn't eat salmon fish. And of course, the reason is there. But the fact is that, if that meets the requirement of hosting a visitor well, which we will give without raising eyeball, and of course, if we can afford it. And if the problem is that it's too expensive or costly, Solomon should be given more water and biscuits, and salmon fish should be forgotten. So we need to be smart, even at family level now, and not be as reckless as the country we live in terms of our spending, particularly at this time where we have a lot of Betta Edu that is ready to wreck Nigeria and create problem and diversion within the family by impoverishing other through corruption. So Mr. and Mrs. should be should assess what they have and host their visitor not as a form of show, but as a form of coming from love they have for the visitor, and they don't put themselves under pressure or stress because the visitor is coming. But of course, if they can afford it, let Solomon eat salmon.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Agbero Olajigbe. He is the Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. Thank you for sharing your thought with us this morning.
It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out up-to-date stories, go to our website www.vanguardangel.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.